We are very fortunate today, though, to have our executive committee from the Resident Council for 2018 here with us in the studio. And I'm going to welcome each of them. And we have on my immediate left the president of the council, Peggy Kellers. Next to her is the vice president, Betty hello, Betty. Betty Christman.
Yes.
And next to her is the secretary, Terence Kuch.
Hi.
And we're very glad to have all three of you with us this morning.
Thank you.
This is the end of the year. You guys have
Yes.
made it through the year. You started out slow, thanks to the flu and the diarrhea and all that went
Yes.
with it, right? For 2 months.
Yes.
Yeah, so you really didn't get started until March, right?
Yes.
Yes, just a couple of the committees got started in January,
Yeah.
but then we had the mid-January till early March.
Yeah. Wow.
So 2 of our committees didn't have their first meeting until March,
Right.
which is very unusual.
Right. So this has been the 10-month council.
Yes. Yes.
Very good. With all of this, you've had elections just recently. How did they turn out?
Well, we had a disappointing election cycle because we didn't get all of the candidates that we needed to fill the vacancies. So that was a challenge, and I think it's something that we have to watch to see if it's a trend. And we know that at least two other communities in our South region were in that same situation.
Interesting.
They either got just enough or they were short. So we were able to appoint 2 people to the 2019 council, and that will help round out our positions, and we're short still 1 position.
Okay. And so if somebody wants to be on the council,
That's right.
what do they need to do?
Well, they need to have lived here a year, and they need to have served on one of our 8 standing committees.
Okay. And they need to let you guys know?
They let us know, right.
All right. Very good.
Yeah.
Things that were accomplished this year?
Oh, well, for the short season that we had, we had many accomplishments. I'll let Betty talk about listening post, and
Okay.
Terence can share some of his areas. I think one of the big things we did was we tried to promote what was going on with the council to the residents, because sometimes if people aren't involved in the meetings, or they don't see the scroll, or don't look at minutes, that kind of thing, they really don't know what's accomplished. So we did several articles within the Villager to, again, try to educate people. We did a frequently asked questions article. We did some cubby stuffers just with informational things. We sent a letter about the Staff Appreciation Fund, especially to the Garden Ridge families who handle the financial affairs of their loved ones.
Excellent.
The resident satisfaction survey, we put out a cubby stuffer to try to answer questions about it and maybe clarify things that are true about the resident satisfaction survey.
Yeah.
So it's been a lot of fun as far as helping to educate the residents and trying to explain how this whole thing works.
Right. Yeah. Well, and it's very, very helpful to hear that. So residents know the council really is active. There's been a perception many years around here that the council doesn't do anything. And so it's always been a challenge to show people just what the council does, really. Betty, what's been your role as vice president? What have you?
Primarily the listening post is what I've been responsible for. We've had a listening post almost every month. There have been a few months where we've just kind of not had one to calm things down a little bit. But that has been a very interesting post, because it gives us a pulse on what's happening with the residents, what's happening here in the community,
Right.
identifying issues that they have that they may not have raised to anybody in management.
Right.
So we always encourage people to ensure they have filled out their comment cards, and we will follow up. When I do the listening post spreadsheet, I always have a front section that goes to Chandra in the front office.
Oh, okay.
And that identifies some of the key areas that I've been hearing residents are concerned about, and also rumors that we hear, so that when Chandra has her executive coffee team meetings with the residents, we're able to dispel those rumors and give out what's the story behind this.
Yeah, we do have a lot of rumors
Yes,
that,
we
that
do.
float around here.
Yes, we do. It's that old telephone game that we used to play as kids. You
Yes.
tell somebody one thing and they pass it on, and it's always kind of changes.
And pass it around 1,500
Yes.
people, it really
Yeah,
changes.
It is, yeah. A couple of the things that I think we've really had an impact on this year, which we've heard about at every single listening post that we've had, is the Wi-Fi and the internet situation,
Yes.
and the cable TV. And Terence and I, in a meeting we had in the spring with Erickson Living Management, we were able to talk to them about the Wi-Fi in particular and give them the history that goes back almost 2 years.
Great.
And the fact that IT folks in Erickson Living came down, met with the residents,
Right.
had promised us what they would do,
Right.
and then there was no follow-through action. So they were extremely interested in that, and we have seen what had happened at that meeting, because they all, their ears perked up, they took a copy of the paper I was, presenting. They went back, and we now have them starting on the changes to the Wi-Fi in
Right.
particular that will happen in 2019. So
Because that's the only thing we've got that's definitive, right?
Yes.
It's just the changes that will be coming
Right.
forth with Wi-Fi.
yeah. But they have started some of the changes already,
Okay.
and we will see more after the first of the year.
Okay.
So that I'm looking forward to. And then cable TV, we're just waiting to hear what is going to be proposed to
Right.
happen with that contract.
Because I understand they still have a 2-year
Yes.
run on
Well,
that
it's
contract.
probably like a year and a half
Year
now.
and a half,
but,
okay.
Yeah.
In regards to that.
But it's hard to get out of a contract.
Yes.
You've got to try and
Do all kinds of things.
do all kinds of things to get them to comply with what your expectations are with that. And I think those are the two main things that I have been extremely pleased with. The others are much smaller things, but they're, I think, much more important also to the residents, like safety issues. People will come and they'll say, hey, the lights are not working in this quarter or that quarter, or they're not bright enough.
Right.
Or it's hard to see the steps when I'm walking down the steps in a certain area. And we can pass those on, and General Services in particular is very, very good about responding to those kind of issues and taking corrective action.
Yeah. And the listening post, in case somebody doesn't know where the what listening post is once a month, right?
It's once a month. It's usually the first full week of the month on Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. We meet on a staggered schedule in front of each dining room.
Okay.
And we're there from 4:30 to almost 6 o'clock. So it's like an hour and a half, and it's usually slow starting, but by the end of the time, you're just surrounded by people.
And there's usually 2 council people on,
Yes.
right?
I had sat in on all of those, except
Wonderful.
for a few exceptions, and then another council member.
Okay. Very, very good.
So, yeah.
So it's another means of getting information to management.
Absolutely,
Yes.
yes. yeah.
And that's really the purpose of the council, is the
Yes.
liaison between residents and management.
Yeah.
And as you know, Clint, this year the management has stepped up their town halls. So in addition to the dining rooms, having one, which was a monthly thing,
Right.
the dining services also has a focus group. General Services is going to try and have a town hall quarterly.
Wonderful.
And then Chandra Kumar's group will have town halls in each neighborhood.
Good, yeah.
And she got that feedback from some of our residents when we met for a lunch with her.
Very
So I think maybe the listening post is another arm, but it may not be the only arm anymore.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, and then there's another arm, and Terence
Yeah.
does that in regards to the reports.
Yes, minutes, and I maintain the bulletin boards on each clubhouse and do the highlights of the minutes, trying to compress hours and many pages of discussion into 2 14-point pages that I hope people will actually read on the bulletin boards, because we hope to get information of most interest to them, not necessarily of most interest in some abstract means. But also with my computer background, 52 years in the computer business,
Right.
I also implemented a council master calendar and a council email, which are not heavily used yet, but I think they will be in the future.
Very good.
And I've been working with the Village Bridge Development Group and with Melissa Robeson on My Erickson, because that's computer driven. And next year I'll be working with the Communications Committee, carrying those initiatives forward,
Very
and
good.
someone else can do the bulletin boards.
You, or what I'm hearing you say, you're not going to be secretary next year.
That's correct.
Okay. Do we know who will be?
It'll be me.
Oh, well,
We're having a
congratulations.
shift in the executive committee,
Okay.
so Betty Christman will become president.
Okay.
Phil DeVore, who is a new appointee for 2019, will become vice president, and then in order to stay on the executive committee, I'll be the secretary.
Oh, okay. So that's going to be a real shift here. All right. Very good. And hey, a couple of days that will happen.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yes.
In regards
Yes.
to it.
1st of January.
There you go.
Yeah, wow, 4 days.
4 days. Okay. With all these changes and with what you guys have accomplished this year, I'm going to direct this to Betty. What do you see that the council needs to do this coming year?
Oh, I was thinking about that last night because I knew you'd come up with that question. There are just a lot of things. I think we need to continue what we've been doing because I think it's been very effective. We need to do follow-up on some of the actions that we have initiated in the past years and maybe haven't been completed. I think something new that I would like to see us work on is how to bring in new members. We have over 100, and I think we had 130 residents sign up for committees this year.
That's excellent.
It is excellent, but when you look in the broad scheme of
Right.
all the residents we have here, I think we need to get a little more involvement by some of those residents.
Yes.
I'd like to see us pull them out of their apartments and start volunteering with us in one way or another. So that's going to be something that I'm going to think about how to do and work on.
To get people involved.
Yes,
Okay.
more involved.
And
Yes, Terence.
we have really active people on the committees who do great work, but many of them, most of them, are not interested in joining the council itself.
Right.
Yeah.
So I think that's an issue that we need to look at.
Because historically, and I've been here 10 and a half years, a little over 10 and a half years now, is that people have wanted to be on the committees, but many
Right.
of those people have wanted it for their own personal reasons as opposed to serving the betterment of the community and other residents. And it's
Right.
kind of a selfish
Yes.
type situation, or I've got my one thing that I want to make sure gets done, as opposed to looking at what kind of things could change
Yeah.
throughout or
Yeah.
improve throughout.
Yeah. And that's what we have to look at is, as the interface between residents and management, we have to look at what's good for the benefit of all the residents
Exactly.
and the entire community, not just yourself or a small group of people.
Right. And it really makes a major difference
Yes, it does.
in regards to that.
Yeah.
But it sounds like the three of you have accomplished a great deal this year, and one of the things that I have personally enjoyed is, Peggy, with you coming out with the list on the back of the agendas for the meetings of accomplishments or things that different people or groups
Yes.
have done. To me, it's very educational, eye-opening about all the things that get accomplished.
Well, thank you.
In regards to
Yeah, I thought that it was important. We're trying to be transparent and get as much information out as possible. And the one disadvantage to that is only the people at the meeting benefit from that handout. So Terence has been really good about getting it on the Village Bridge. And then Carolyn Nagler has also been very supportive
Right.
to
Right.
try to include that in the Villager.
Right. Yeah, and Carolyn Nagler has worked diligently in
Yes.
regards to
Yes, she
Villager,
has.
and the Villager truly has been the voice of Greenspring for years and years.
Yes.
And I had the pleasure of writing an article every publication
That's right.
during the time that I was president, and I felt that there's a lot of information that was disseminated because of the Villager, and I think it still happens that way in regards to it.
Yeah.
And it's the
And
one
she-
thing that we know everybody reads.
Yes.
Yes.
She
yeah.
and Ernie Carpenter, her assistant,
Yes.
have really picked things up. And when our committees, for example, submit an article, Ernie will be the one that will help just make it look good.
Oh, nice.
And so he does a lot of the editing before it goes to her review board.
Okay.
So that's been helpful.
Yeah. Yeah, and Ernie has a history of being an editor
Yes.
and being in
Yes.
charge of publications. I mean, I was talking to him the other day about all the publications that he has been in charge of, and it's like, wow. I mean, the man knows what he's doing in regards to it. With the things that you've done, there's another thing that nobody has mentioned. You have involved more residents this year in different groups outside of the actual formal organization than's ever occurred in regards to it. With the luncheons with Chandra, with the meetings with Chandra about how to do various things or to gain input to Chandra about various topics. And I don't even know what all the things were that you did with that, but there's been a number of those items.
We did lunches monthly with Chandra, and that
Okay.
was her initiative, and that comes out of her budget. So
okay.
the residents, often we would invite 10 residents, and you were either on a committee, you were a chair or a secretary, and it was people that have been serving on committees. So
Right.
it was kind of a reward for them. She wanted to learn more about the different residents. She wanted to get to know them on a personal level. And then I took notes at each of those lunches and
okay.
then gave the executive team the notes from that
Okay.
meeting. So oftentimes there were ideas that came out from those lunches that were then implemented. For example, the Mythbusters at the
Right,
coffee,
yeah.
that
Right.
came out of one of the first lunches. The idea about poor response time, that came out of one of the lunches. And so Chandra initiated a 48-hour response time initially with the goal of getting to 24 hours. And this is a business day. And it doesn't mean that they have an answer
Right.
for the person that called or emailed, but at least it's an
Acknowledgement.
acknowledgement,
Yes,
which is
yeah.
really important.
The one thing I would comment about that, though, is just to say, unfortunately, the residents don't know what goes on in those meetings. And I would just think this coming year, it might be something she might want to make residents aware of. What happens there, how did people get invited to those things,
Okay.
And what was the information that was shared, because it might generate some thought and a desire for other
Yes.
people, just thinking about what you said, Betty, about wanting to get more people involved
Right.
of what is going on.
That's a good
Yeah.
idea, Clint.
Yeah,
in
it's a very
regards
good
to it.
idea.
One thing I've talked with Chandra at my meeting this week was, should we involve new residents and maybe pair off, have a equal number of new residents with returning residents. That may also stimulate some interest.
Right. Well,
Absolutely. Yeah.
you're bringing some. I understand you're bringing some new people on the council, right?
Yes.
People who have never done anything other than go to a committee meeting.
That's right. We have Doug Franklin
Okay.
coming on the council. He was part of the election process. And then our new appointees are Phil DeVore, who obviously I said
Right.
would be a vice president, and then Dave Kaiser, who has been active with General Services.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so, those, from my standpoint, I would consider those new people
Yes.
in regards
Yeah.
to it.
New to the council.
Yes.
But
yes.
not new to the committee process.
Right.
But
Right.
Exactly.
I think it helps for them to have had that background
Yes.
to understand what the council does.
I think it's
Yeah.
essential that they have
Yes.
the
Oh.
1 year minimum of
Yes.
committee
Yes.
to
Yeah.
understand the functioning of the council, because I think otherwise
You have to.
Yeah.
You absolutely have to.
you're,
the
you're
value-
lost otherwise.
Yes.
The value of having Phil come on the executive committee is he's a big picture person, and he's been on several different committees
Yes.
in his time here. And
Right.
so he always has some very interesting insights, and
Right.
he's a person that wants to find a solution and not just, bring up the problems.
Right.
So, and that's what I liked about having Terence on the council. He's a big picture person, and he always looks towards the solution
Yeah.
rather than just,
Yeah.
creating the problem.
Yes, Terence.
And Phil recruited me for my first committee job.
I know, and I was going to comment about that because Phil and I have talked several times.
Yeah, he was the communications committee chair,
Yeah.
and we were standing in line at an estate sale once, and he said, "How would you like to be secretary?" What? I said, "Okay,"
Yeah.
and it started there.
Very,
Yeah.
very good. Yeah, but that's the way people get on the councils. That's where they get in
Yes.
committees.
Yes, it
Is
is.
word of mouth and people encouraging one another. And I encouraged Phil, Terence, when you came on, I encouraged Phil to come on. I mean, I was kept on pushing him to, to raise his hand in regards. When he said, no, Terence. I said, I don't know Terence yet. I know you. But I'm glad that he's finally going to do it. So that's wonderful.
One area, Clint, I want to mention, especially about resident involvement, is the budget process. And many residents, because we haven't had a meeting this month, don't know, what the board has approved. And so every year in June, we ask the residents for requests for capital expense. Now, it's a little bit of a gray area as to what a capital expense is, but basically it's an item that's $2,500 or more, and it has depreciating value. So I think there were 85 requests this year.
Which is the most we've had.
That's right.
Which is wonderful.
Yes, it is.
And naturally, not all of them fit into that category. Some of them are supplies, some of them are maintenance, work order type things, and so we shaved that down, and we actually put 16 forward this year.
Which is wonderful.
And it really is. And in our top 5 this year was the Wi-Fi, which is now being taken care of by a bigger cause. We have the theater improvements, which is really critical. As you know, we didn't have a play this past fall because we needed to do upgrades.
Yeah, because the lighting in there was absolutely atrocious in regards to it. I understand the wiring had to be totally redone.
Right, and so we're doing that internally, and then with the Village Square life cycle thing going on, they're going to really work on the stage because there are some uneven surfaces and that kind of thing. So keep your fingers crossed. It's supposed to start in January because obviously the play for May, we start tryouts and readings and that kind of thing in February. So in talking with John Carl, he's prepared to go later if it means that we can get a play in this year.
Wonderful.
Which he's trying for June if it doesn't happen in May, and otherwise it will be a fall production. And then a couple other key areas which people may not think about. We had a yacht club request about the gazebo. So we're going to refurbish the gazebo.
Wonderful.
We're going to have an embarkment area that's safe and easy for older people to access. We're going to have pull cords and electrical power in not only the gazebo but also in the storage shed, which you can imagine if it's on a hot day, someone may feel faint or something putting their boat away. So we want to take every precaution.
Well, historically, unfortunately, we lost a member in the storage shed at one point. So,
And then the other thing is we're going to have charging stations for electric cars and hybrids. And obviously that's become a demand among not only residents but also employees.
Right.
So that will be one of the 5.
Do we know where it will be?
No, we haven't determined that. Right.
Okay.
I know General Services is working on that.
So that's a TBD, huh?
That is.
Yes.
So the important thing that residents need to understand is just because they didn't make the top 5 of what the board approved, it doesn't mean that their request is gone unnoticed. Because in the August meeting of the executive team here, they often see things that then they'll absorb into their expense budget.
Right.
And many times the president will know what those are, but we don't hear like regular accounts. We maybe see the work is happening.
Right.
So there were some really important requests made, and it's not that it didn't make it. Many times they're absorbed, and so that's where I really appreciate the partnership that we have with the staff.
Yeah, very important. Very important. And I think the staff relies on the input from the residents. I mean, they can't see and hear everything. I mean, it just goes on. And it's very important that we let the staff know what the concerns are in regards to it. Very, very good. With all of this, other than the residents just letting you know that they want to be involved, what can they do? What can they do to get involved?
Do you mean on a committee?
Committee, anything in regards to getting involved in Green Spring?
Comment cards.
Comment cards, okay.
Yes,
Yes,
definitely.
that's a
We
good
have
one.
an opening on the Building Community Trust Committee. They would
Okay.
like to have more residents involved. So that's a way that you can
And that
contact.
comes under?
That comes under one of Chandra's staff committees.
Okay.
There are, I believe, 5 staff committees. I can't name them off the top of my head, but 2 now are looking to involve residents. This past year and in 2017, the BCT opened it up to Mary Sue Garner, who then was the president.
Right.
She invited me as the vice president, and then this year I invited Betty as our vice president.
Right.
So now we see a need for, especially for men who, you know, maybe want to become part of that committee. And then there's another staff committee who is also thinking about having residents because they felt like the model that BCT had was very effective.
Good.
So that's one way.
So if they want to do that, then they need to let administration know?
No, they can let any one of us know,
Right.
Oh,
and we'll
okay.
pass it along.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And the other thing that we're really wrestling with as a community is thinking about the big picture. What does it mean to be in community? And how can we create a positive culture? We've really run into some hard times with the lack of respect. And it's resident to staff,
Yeah.
resident to resident.
Right.
And I think in order to make this a very positive experience, we need to individually look at that
Right.
and then as a community decide how do we want to spend our days? And is it in the bickering or I get mad at you, you know, or that kind of thing? And so we're really trying to work with that whole level of respect and how we can value one another as individuals, but just because I'm aching today, it doesn't mean that I have to lash out at you.
Well, one of our
Right.
execs in the past, Jean Landerville, when
Mm-hmm.
she was here, wanted to do the same thing. Unfortunately, she was only here for a short period of time, like 14 months
Mm-hmm.
all total. But she recommended us reading a book about civility. And I have been told, I don't know personally, but I've been told that at Tallgrass in Kansas, where she is now, is the exec, that they have implemented the reading of civility, and it really has worked in regards to
Oh,
Nice.
you know, having more civility within
that's
the
interesting.
community, that people are nicer to one another. And I thought, wow, that would really be nice you know, to do that. So I that's the extent of my knowledge about that.
That's
But
good.
yeah,
Yeah, thank you.
okay. in
Be something
regards
to look into.
yeah. But you know, other
Yeah.
communities are doing things, and just like you
Right.
found out that there's 2 other communities that did not get enough residents, or just barely got enough residents for their council. All those things happen, and we're not unique in that way. I mean, and now with 16 fully developed communities and more developing, more coming online, I mean, we're just a microcosm of society.
Right. I think we need to look at a way to communicate with those others and
Yeah.
share our, you know, experiences and what's happening.
Right.
Because if it's happening in one, as we have found out, it's happening in others.
Right. Wasn't that started this year or last year with the council having the web? What's it? People talking together from all the
yes,
different
we did have a, what is it called?
web talk or something. like that.
Yeah.
Webinar.
Webinar,
is
yes.
what it was.
With
Yeah,
our
yeah.
board, the
But-
CRC.
Yeah.
Because I know we have tried to communicate like that before. I mean, we tried when I was president to do that,
Right.
and it just didn't work
yeah.
in regards to it. But it's yeah,
It was very effective. There were a few glitches as we worked through it.
yeah,
But it was good. The only thing can't see each other.
right, right.
Which I think is helpful to see, you know, who you're talking with or who you're talking to.
There may be technology out there where you could do that. I don't know anything
Oh,
about
I think
that.
there is.
Right.
And you know that we have our annual South Region meeting with the other
right.
resident
Yes.
councils.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
that includes 5. This year we hosted it. Next year Oak Crest will host it. And so we get a lot of interaction at those meetings.
Okay.
Right.
Good.
Uh-huh.
All right, very, very
Okay.
good. Well, it sounds like you've got your plate full coming up for
Yes.
this coming year. And Betty,
Yes, we do.
congratulations.
Thank you very
I mean,
much.
your election or appointment to being the president, and
Thank you.
Peggy, for you, what you've accomplished this year, and greatly appreciate that and your leadership in regards to it. And now you get to sit and listen to everybody, right?
And take notes.
Yeah. And write the minutes.
There you
Yes.
go. Very, very good. And Terence, thank you very much for your work this year on the council so far, and your involvement coming up this coming year.
Thank you.
In regards to it.
Thank you.
Very good. Again, thank you all for being on with us, and have a marvelous, happy New Year.